A few winters ago, on a cold January morning in northern Japan, I stood inside a small service bay just outside Sapporo and watched a diesel van roll in from the snow. The body was battered, the wheel arches were packed with ice, and the odometer showed over 500,000 kilometers. When the driver turned the key, the engine idled flawlessly. No rattle, no smoke, no drama. Today I'm revealing why. The simple Japanese diesel fuel habit that keeps injectors clean for life, and why ignoring it quietly destroys engines everywhere else. The driver didn't come in complaining about performance. He didn't mention hard starts, poor fuel economy, or power loss. He simply said the engine felt a little rougher than usual on cold mornings. That was it. No panic, no urgency. And that calm reaction was the first clue that this culture treats diesel engines very differently. In most places, diesel injectors are seen as ticking time bombs. Precision parts that will eventually clog, stick, or fail no matter what you do. In Japan, they are treated like long-term assets that must be protected from the very beginning. That difference in mindset changes everything. Modern diesel injectors are not forgiving components. They operate at extreme pressures, often exceeding 30,000 pounds per square inch. The spray holes are microscopic, smaller than a human hair, designed to atomize thick diesel fuel into an ultra-fine mist. That mist is the only reason a diesel engine can burn cleanly, quietly, and efficiently. The moment the spray pattern degrades, combustion quality collapses. But here is the problem. Diesel injectors rarely fail all at once. They drift, slowly, invisibly, and the engine will hide it from you for as long as it can. This is why so many diesel owners say the same thing right before a major repair. It still ran fine. Of course it did. The engine control unit compensated. Injection timing adjusted. Fuel quantity changed. The engine did everything possible to mask the degradation. Meanwhile, fuel economy slipped, soot increased, exhaust temperatures rose, and injectors aged faster than they should have. By the time hard starts, knock, or smoke appear, the damage is already baked in. Japanese diesel mechanics do not wait for that stage. What I watched that morning was not a repair. It was routine. No injector removal, no pressurized cleaning machine, no expensive service upsell. The mechanic did not even touch the engine at first. Instead, he asked about fuel habits, where the driver filled up, how often, and what maintenance he followed between oil changes. That conversation revealed the real secret. In Japan, diesel injector cleanliness is treated as a continuous process, not a reactionary one. The assumption is simple. Diesel fuel will leave deposits. Heat soak after shutdown will cook residue onto injector tips. Cold starts will stress spray patterns. That is physics, not a defect. So instead of fighting deposits after they harden, the Japanese method prevents them from ever reaching that stage. Soft deposits are easy to manage. Hardened ones are not. That one distinction is the foundation of everything that follows. This is why Japanese diesel engines age differently. Fleet vans, delivery trucks, taxis, and work vehicles rack up enormous mileage without the constant injector drama seen elsewhere. The engines don't feel worn because combustion quality never degrades enough to force permanent compensation. The injectors never reach the point where their internal balance is compromised. And that longevity does not come from better parts. It comes from a habit. Every diesel shutdown leaves behind trace fuel at the injector tip. The lighter fractions evaporate. Heavier components remain. Over thousands of heat cycles, that residue becomes varnish, then carbon. In most countries, nothing interrupts that process. In Japan, chemistry steps in early, gently, and repeatedly. Not aggressively, not occasionally, consistently. And here's the part that challenges everything most diesel owners believe. This method does not rely on harsh, high-dose injector cleaners used once a year in desperation. Those often do more harm than good. Japanese technicians avoid shock cleaning entirely. Instead, they rely on controlled detergent exposure at the correct concentration and interval, enough to soften deposits before they harden. Never enough to strip or imbalance the injector. The result is subtle but powerful. Engines that do not get louder with age, cold starts that remain controlled, fuel economy that does not mysteriously fall off a cliff, oil that stays cleaner because incomplete combustion never becomes normal. Even emission systems benefit because they are not forced to deal with excess soot created by poor atomization. That diesel van in Sapporo did not idle smoothly by accident. It was not luck. And it was not because the injectors were magically better than yours. It was because the driver followed a boring, disciplined fuel habit that prevented degradation long before it could be felt. And that is where the curiosity should start to grow uncomfortable. Because if diesel injectors can be kept clean continuously, if high mileage does not have to mean harsh combustion, if injector failure is not inevitable but optional, then the real question becomes far more important than which product to use. It is why this method is almost never taught outside Japan, why problems happen when people try to copy it incorrectly, and how a small mistake can undo everything it is meant to protect. That is what you need to understand next. Most diesel drivers believe injector problems announce themselves loudly. Hard starts, thick smoke, knocking sounds, a dashboard full of warning lights. That belief is exactly why diesel injectors fail far earlier than they should. Because by the time those symptoms appear, the injectors are already damaged, not dirty. And that distinction matters more in diesel engines than anywhere else. To understand why the Japanese diesel method works, you have to understand how brutally precise modern diesel injection really is. A diesel injector does not mist fuel the way a gasoline injector does. It atomizes fuel at pressures so extreme they border on violent. Common rail diesel systems operate at 20 to 30,000 pounds per square inch. That pressure forces fuel through microscopic openings that are measured in microns, smaller than a human hair, smaller than a grain of sand. That precision is what allows clean combustion, quiet operation, and efficiency that gasoline engines simply cannot match. But that same precision makes diesel injectors unforgiving. Every single contaminant matters. Water, wax, microbial growth, oxidized fuel, tiny traces of sulfur residue. Even fuel that technically meets specifications can leave behind deposits under the right conditions. And those conditions happen constantly in real-world driving. Short trips, cold starts, hot shutdowns, long idling, stop-and-go traffic. All of it creates opportunities for deposits to form inside the injector body and at the nozzle tip. The problem is not catastrophic, at least not at first. Diesel injectors don't clog like a drain. They drift. Their spray pattern becomes uneven. Injection timing subtly changes. Instead of a perfectly shaped plume, fuel begins to jet asymmetrically. Combustion still happens, but it's less complete. The engine compensates by injecting slightly more fuel. Power feels normal. Torque feels intact. But efficiency slips. Noise increases. Soot production rises. And the ECU quietly adapts to hide the problem. This is why so many diesel owners swear their engine just got louder with age or lost a bit of smoothness. It didn't age. It adapted around dirty injectors. In Japan, this drift is not accepted as normal. Japanese diesel technicians, especially those maintaining commercial fleets, treat injectors as consumables only if neglected. Otherwise, they are preserved. The mindset is completely different. They assume deposits will form, and they interrupt the process early, gently, and continuously. Not with aggressive off-car cleaning, not with emergency flushes, but with chemistry designed to work inside the engine while it operates normally. The diesel version of the Japanese method revolves around two core enemies: deposits and water. Diesel fuel is hygroscopic. It absorbs moisture from the air. Over time, that moisture settles in the fuel system. Water does not just cause corrosion, it promotes microbial growth. Bacteria and fungi feed on diesel fuel, creating sludge and acidic byproducts that attack injectors from the inside. This is especially common in vehicles that sit, drive short distances, or operate in humid environments. Once microbes establish themselves, no amount of hard driving will fix the problem. Japanese diesel maintenance assumes water is always present and addresses it continuously. This is why fuel conditioning is routine, not reactive. High-quality diesel detergents are used not to clean clogged injectors, but to prevent deposits from stabilizing in the first place. These detergents are not the same as gasoline polyethylamine cleaners. Diesel chemistry is different. The most effective Japanese-approved diesel additives focus on deposit control, lubricity improvement, and water dispersion. They break the surface tension that allows deposits to stick while gently dissolving soft buildup before it hardens. And just like with gasoline, timing matters more than strength. Japanese diesel drivers do not wait until an injector ticks or smokes. They introduce conditioning additives early, often from the first few oil changes onward. This is why high-mileage diesel engines in Japan do not exhibit the classic signs of injector wear. The injectors never experience prolonged exposure to hardened deposits. Spray patterns remain stable. Injection timing remains consistent. Combustion stays predictable. Another critical difference is dosing discipline. Western diesel owners often overdose additives, believing more equals better. In reality, excessive detergent concentration can alter fuel viscosity, upset combustion, and even damage seals over time. Japanese technicians follow precise dosing intervals. One product, one dose, one tank, then nothing until the next interval. No mixing, no chasing results. The goal is long-term stability, not short-term drama. This method also explains why so many diesel injector cleaning services fail to deliver lasting results. They are used too late. Once injectors have developed hard internal deposits or erosion from water contamination, no additive can restore them. At that point, replacement is inevitable. The Japanese method exists specifically to prevent reaching that stage. What surprises most drivers is how subtle the benefits feel at first. There is no sudden surge of power, no dramatic transformation. Instead, the engine simply stops getting worse. Then slowly, it feels more consistent. Cold starts stabilize. Idle smooths. Diesel knock softens. Fuel economy stops declining. These changes are easy to dismiss individually. Together, they signal an injector system that is no longer drifting out of spec. Another overlooked benefit is how this method protects downstream components. Clean diesel injectors reduce soot formation. Less soot means less EGR contamination, less DPF loading, fewer forced regenerations, lower exhaust temperatures, cleaner oil. The entire emission system benefits when injection quality remains intact. This is why Japanese diesel vehicles experience fewer cascading failures as mileage accumulates. But there is a critical warning here. Not all diesel additives are created equal. Many products marketed as injector cleaners contain solvents that are too aggressive for continuous use. Others focus only on cetane boost, which does nothing to prevent deposits. The Japanese method relies on fuel conditioners designed specifically for long-term deposit control and water management, not instant results. And this brings us to the most important question. How do you apply this method correctly in a diesel engine without damaging injectors, upsetting emission systems, or wasting money on the wrong products? Because when done right, diesel injectors can last the life of the engine, and when done wrong, they can fail faster than if you did nothing at all. That's what you need to understand next. By the time most diesel owners realize something is wrong, the damage has already been done. Power feels softer than it used to. Cold starts take just a little longer. Fuel economy quietly drops. The engine still runs, still pulls, still does its job, but it no longer feels sharp. That slow decline is exactly what the Japanese diesel method is designed to prevent. And understanding why it works for life requires understanding one uncomfortable truth about modern diesel engines. Diesel injectors don't fail loudly, they fail politely. High-pressure diesel injection systems operate at pressures that would destroy older fuel systems. Tiny tolerances, microscopic spray holes, extreme heat. Every single injection event depends on absolute precision. When that precision erodes, the engine control unit compensates. It adjusts timing. It alters injection duration. It adds fuel to maintain torque. Just like with gasoline engines, the driver feels almost nothing until the compensation reaches its limit. What Japanese diesel technicians figured out decades ago is that waiting for symptoms is already too late. Once diesel injector deposits harden, no amount of aggressive cleaning truly restores original spray geometry. You can improve things, yes, you can reduce roughness, but the injector is never quite the same again. That's why the goal is never recovery. The goal is preservation. And this is where the method becomes counterintuitive for most drivers. Japanese diesel maintenance is not reactive. It is preventive to the point of being boring. Instead of fixing injectors, technicians assume contamination is inevitable, and they interrupt the process continuously before deposits ever become destructive. The injectors are never allowed to cross the line where spray distortion begins. The final piece of the method is consistency over the long term. Diesel fuel, by nature, contains more energy-dense components than gasoline. Those components are excellent for torque, but they also leave heavier residues during hot shutdowns. After a long drive, injector tips remain extremely hot. Residual fuel cooks. Light fractions evaporate. Heavier molecules remain behind. In untreated systems, those residues slowly polymerize into varnish and carbon. That process never stops. Japanese diesel fleets do not try to stop physics. They manage it. Instead of dumping strong cleaners occasionally, they introduce mild, injector-safe detergents at controlled intervals, often every few thousand miles, matched precisely to the fuel system design. Common rail diesels, piezo injectors, and high-pressure pumps are all treated with respect. No overconcentration, no mixing brands, no improvisation. The injectors experience constant low-level cleaning under real operating conditions, heat cycles, load changes, highway cruising, stop-and-go traffic. This allows deposits to soften and dissolve gradually, never reaching the hardened stage that permanently alters spray patterns. And because this happens quietly in the background, something remarkable occurs. The ECU never enters long-term compensation mode. Fuel trims remain stable. Injection timing stays close to ideal. Combustion remains complete. Soot production decreases, which means EGR systems stay cleaner. DPF regeneration cycles become less frequent. Oil contamination slows. Even turbocharger health improves because exhaust flow remains predictable instead of soot-heavy. This is why Japanese diesel engines age differently. High-mileage diesel vans still start cleanly on cold mornings. Taxis idle smoothly after hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Delivery trucks do not develop the tired feeling most people associate with diesel age. The engine has not been fighting itself for years. It has not been compensating for degraded injection. It has simply been allowed to do its job the way it was designed to. Another critical reason this method works for life is restraint. Japanese technicians are extremely conservative about what they do not touch. They avoid aggressive flushes. They avoid off-car injector cleaning unless absolutely necessary. They understand that once you disturb injector balance, you risk uneven flow rates. That unevenness creates cylinder-to-cylinder differences that the ECU can only partially correct. Prevention avoids that risk entirely. This is also why many diesel owners outside Japan believe injector cleaners do not work. They use them too late, or too aggressively, or inconsistently. They expect immediate transformation instead of long-term stability. When nothing dramatic happens, they assume it failed. In reality, they waited until the damage was already done. The Japanese method assumes something very different. Diesel injectors can be lifetime components if treated correctly from early on. Once injectors remain clean, everything downstream benefits. DPF systems last longer. EGR valves stay freer. Intake manifolds accumulate less sludge. Oil change intervals become more predictable. The engine stops slowly poisoning itself with incomplete combustion. And here is the part that should make you pause. This method does not require special tools. It does not require disassembly. It does not require expensive services. It happens while driving. The only requirement is discipline. Same high-quality diesel detergent chemistry, same interval, same dosage. No shortcuts. Do that, and injector problems quietly disappear from your ownership experience. Miss it, and the engine slowly drifts into inefficiency while feeling perfectly fine, until it does not. That Japanese taxi I saw years ago did not have miracle injectors. It had injectors that were never allowed to age poorly. That difference alone determined whether the engine would feel worn at 150,000 miles or confident at 400,000 miles. If you drive a diesel and plan to keep it long-term, this habit matters more than most parts you will ever replace. And if you want to understand the next silent killer that shortens diesel engine life without triggering a single warning light, subscribe. The next breakdown reveals another overlooked habit that separates engines that last from engines that slowly drain your wallet without warning.